Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Primetime News on TV1. We're coming to you live and direct from our News First studios here in Colombo. I'm Charlene Benedict and with me is my co-anchor Naviksha. I'm going to say good evening, Naviksha.
Good evening, Charlene. Before we take a look at our headlines for tonight, we'd like to apologize that Newsline was not aired on time today as the ICC Cricket World Cup qualifier took a bit more time than expected. However, you can watch Newsline tonight immediately after Primetime News. And now let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you.
Major revelations surrounding the quality of the Indian manufactured anesthetic bupivacaine. Health Minister tells Parliament that funding for free healthcare is insufficient and he is not ready to remain as minister if solutions are not provided. United Nations Deputy Human Rights Commissioner issues a warning to Sri Lanka on accountability. Farmers in crisis. Protests erupt once again. Police opened fire on three-wheeler for failing to stop. Frantic final search for stricken sub as oxygen levels dwindle.
News First Headlines. Main sponsor.
Durden's Hospital, dedicated to you.
Taking a look at those stories in detail now. Information has come to light over serious issues surrounding the quality of the Indian manufactured anesthetic bupivacaine, which is suspected to have caused the deaths of 2 Sri Lankan women.
Two women who were admitted to the Peradeniya Teaching Hospital to undergo cesarean and hernia surgery had developed complications because they were administered with the Indian manufactured anesthetic bupivacaine hydrochloride in dextrose injection. One of the women died on the 6th of April, while the other passed away on the 15th of June, while being treated at the intensive care unit of the hospital. The anesthetic was imported to Sri Lanka via Section 109 of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority Act without NMRA registration. Section 109 of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority Act notes that the authority may grant permission in special circumstances, such as to save a life, to control an outbreak of an infection or an epidemic, or any other national emergency, or for national security, to import and supply a particular medicine, medical device, or borderline product in specified quantities. It notes that such permission may be granted on a request made by the Minister of Health. The Indian manufactured anesthetic bupivacaine hydrochloride in dextrose injection was imported to Sri Lanka via this provision. However, following complaints citing that complications were developed after the anesthetic was administered, the National Medicines Quality Assurance Laboratory of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority had tested the samples of the anesthetic. The test results revealed that the Indian manufactured anesthetic bupivacaine hydrochloride in dextrose injection did not meet the United States standards. Therefore, the National Medicines Regulatory Authority had recommended that the bupivacaine hydrochloride in dextrose injection batch in question be withheld and not be released. If measures were taken to import the drugs by following due process, instead of importing them citing an emergency situation and the use of a provision of the Act, lives could have been saved. When concerns were raised with regard to the loopholes that exist in the regulation process, this was the response that was given.
This is like the issue of the folklore of Amal Bisu. You cannot find a house where a death has never occurred. There is an issue with a registered medicine and an unregistered medicine. Such incidents cannot be prevented. As the minister, I have ordered for an investigation to take place immediately and I have called for a report. If there is an issue, action will be taken against them.
සම්බන්ධව කටයුතු කරන ආකාරයට කටයුතු කරන්න හරි. ඔව්. ඔය තමයි කටහඬ වෙනස් වෙලා අයියේ. ඔබතුමා ගිහිල්ලා ජනාධිපති මම ඒකෙන් දැන් මම කීවරේ මම ගිහිල්ලා බෙහෙත් ගෙනල්ලා නැහැ. ඒක අමූලික බොරුවක්. එච්චරයි. හරිද? සතුටුද? දැන් සතුටුද?
Section 109 of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority Act notes that permission may be granted on a request made by the Ministry of Health. So, can the ministry simply cast aside its responsibility in the regulation process? What is the clarification that will be given to the masses?
Sri Lanka's Health Minister, speaking on the issue, informed the Parliament that his ministry had already summoned the doctors of the Peradeniya Teaching Hospital for an investigation on Thursday.
You have said that there will be an investigation into the quality of the anesthetic drugs used. What actions has the Health Ministry taken in this regard? And it should also be noted that there is a severe medicine shortage in the country. All three incidents were reported from the Peradeniya Teaching Hospital and the Peradeniya Children's Hospital. We have summoned the doctors in these hospitals to the ministry. Then on the medicine shortage, we have come across an issue on the funds released for this purpose. We have paid a keen interest on the funds that are allocated to free education and health in the country. In case if I can't do anything about this, I will take steps to inform the House on it. I have decided to not to remain in this ministerial portfolio under these shortcomings, because if I remain in this seat with all these shortcomings which are beyond my control, it is unfair for the service and the society. No matter what reasons we have, I will have to bear the responsibility. Health Minister Kehele Ramukwella must resign from his position. Instead of resigning, he is trying to act a small play. He is now telling that he will have to take a policy decision since he is not getting enough funds to his ministry. But Minister, these plays will not wipe off the crime you committed by killing innocent people and even making them handicapped by importing low quality medicines to the country for a cheap price. The chairman of the NMRA made a very insensitive statement on these deaths. Recently appearing on TV with a broad smile in his face, he is telling that it is hard to stop deaths occurring in a house irrespective of the fact that the medicines are in good quality or not. Who imported these low quality medicines to the country? Who paid for these low quality medicines? According to the IMF, these data should be published on the internet, and if it is published, then we can see as to who was involved in the procurement process in purchasing these low quality medicines. By publishing these data, we can stop these flaws in the future. Importing a low quality medicine to earn a 85 rupee profit has cost us 2 valuable lives. We don't know whether there are more deaths. Will the chairman of the NMRA behave like this if this happens to one of his own family members?
The Government Medical Officers Association convened a media briefing regarding recent concerns over medicine.
Media recently revealed of several patients dying and experiencing complications due to substandard types of medicines. Other countries use mechanisms to prevent such incidents. We can use the same mechanism in our country. Instead, we see them making excuses and making a joke out of it. It is a serious concern if the NMRA fulfilled its duty of providing health safety to the people. It led to several complications. The Government Medical Officers Association condemns attempts to present jokes to the people instead of preventing complications and formulating necessary mechanisms.
This was the clarification given by the Frontline Socialist Party.
The Minister of Health and the chairman of the NMRA, who should be responsible for this medicine, are laughing out loud and are treating these deaths as a joke. They are not just using the principle that every person who is born will die to justify murdering these people after importing substandard medicine, but also laughing after saying that. Then they should also say that there is no point in punishing murderers because every person who is born must die. Yesterday, the Minister of Health, Kehele Ramukwella, joked about the deaths of a 2-year-old child and that child's parents' tears. He then asked if we were happy now. These people who are laughing at the people are a group of thieves. The chairman of the NMRA, Professor S.D. Jayaratne, specifically says that they initiated the waiver of registration because the minister asked them to do it. The minister must now accept responsibility for this.
Fraud and corruption have a direct impact on the lives of all Sri Lankans. What would happen if the media were prevented from exposing matters related to health and the economy? Plans are afoot to introduce legislation to regulate the media as well. Views were expressed on this.
We are told that he met the person in London who he intends to sell the Sri Lanka Telecom. That is the person who laundered money for the LTT in the past. He owns a television station in the country. He visited the UK to discuss the sale of Sri Lanka Telecom with a LTT person. He now speaks of 2048. Politicians continue their attempts to mislead the people. When all attempts fail, they try to introduce legislation to suppress the people. Legislation is to be imposed to the media as well. He says that this has been introduced to shut down the media that set his residence ablaze. This is a warning, and the warning is to Sirasa. Sirasa is a media that worked properly irrespective of the government that was in power. He's trying to seek vengeance from Sirasa because a person was holding a camera when his house was set ablaze. For the past 5 months, there have been 38 shootings. 3 incidents were reported on Wednesday alone. There's no security for the people. There's no proper environment for the public to survive. The country has collapsed completely.
Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna parliamentarian Sanjeev Edirimana spoke about regulating the media today.
There's no final draft under the title Broadcasting Regulatory Commission Act. It is only an initial idea that is being discussed. This idea has not even developed into a draft. It is a very primary idea that is being discussed. As a government, we will not interfere in the rights of the media to ensure the right to information of the general public.
Attorney Tharaka Nanakara said attempts are being made to suppress media.
අපි දකිනවා සිරස මාධ්‍ය ජාලය මේ
The Sirasa Media Network is allocating a lot of time to fight against the proposed Broadcasting Regulatory Commission bill daily. The time has come for all mass media organizations in the country to unite against the government's unlawful efforts. The government is lying about it only being a concept paper and being prepared to amend it. The government's intention behind it is dangerous. If someone thinks they'll attack Sirasa and the issue will end, that is a lie. When an act is passed, it is implemented in different ways. For example, do police officers in Sri Lanka use the ICCPR Act to ensure political rights? It is used to stomp on the people's right to freedom and expression and speech.
පාගල දාන්නලා එහෙමනම් මාටින් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයා බවතරණය පොත ලියනකොට මේ පනත තිබුණා නම් උන්න හැවත් සිර බාරට ගන්නවා මේ අපේ රටේ පොලිසිය.
Civil organizations and trade unions spoke about attempts to regulate the media today.
Ranil Rajapaksa මහත්තයා කොහොමද ලේසි පුජ්‍යලයක් නෙමෙයි රට.
Ranil Rajapaksa is not an easy person to deal with. Selling assets of the country is a very simple thing for him. But to do that, he needs to bring in this Broadcasting Regulatory Commission Act and silence the media. The government must remember one thing. It is not only the executive, legislature and the judiciary that bears the burden of the country. You must remember that the media is one of the pillars that shoulders the most amount of weight. It is because of the information that the media provides the executive, legislature and the judiciary that many of the issues of the general public are resolved. It is the media that reveals details of crimes and even acts of governments or anyone else that could cause harm to the country.
යම් ජන කොටස් වලට ජාතීන් අසාධාරණයක් වෙනවා නම් ඒ පිළිබඳව නිවැරදිව හිටගෙන ඒක හෙළිදරව් කරන්න.
This is the opinion of the government-registered National Federation of Agri-Entrepreneurs.
අපේ ගොවීන්ට වී ටික විකුණ ගන්න බැරුණාම ගොවියෝ ඇවිල්ලා
When our farmers can't sell their produce and we inform the minister about it and the minister ignores us, they went and told the media about it, and it was the media who solved that issue for us. When wild elephants are rampaging through houses and the minister is chewing on beetle and not saying anything, it is the media that steps in to solve the issue. When India and China are ransacking our fisheries resources, it is the media that always steps in to resolve the issue. The media is a platform for all the helpless people in the country. This Broadcasting Regulatory Commission Act is breaking down the platform that was built for helpless people in the country.
UN Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights Nada Al-Nashif warned Sri Lanka that as long as an accountability deficit remains, the international community should include use of accepted principles of universal and extraterritorial jurisdictions to investigate and prosecute alleged perpetrators.
The economic crisis continues to have a severe impact on the rights and well-being of many Sri Lankans. Discussions with creditors are underway, and although this year the International Monetary Fund approved a financial support package, which is an important first step, it is crucial to ensure that the burden of potential reforms does not further compound inequalities. Robust safety nets and social protection measures are needed to shelter the most vulnerable from the negative spillovers of economic restructuring. It is also vital to address the underlying factors of the crisis, including corruption, which was a loud and essential demand of the protests that took place last year. Our office urges the government and political parties in Sri Lanka to use this opportunity for democratic renewal, for deeper institutional reforms, and to advance accountability and reconciliation, as well as the promotion and the protection of human rights. Sri Lanka has witnessed too many ad hoc commissions in the past that failed to ensure accountability. Accountability remains the fundamental gap in attempts to deal with the past, and as long as impunity prevails, Sri Lanka will achieve neither genuine reconciliation nor sustainable peace. Fundamentally, it is and remains the responsibility of the Sri Lankan authorities to directly acknowledge past violations and undertake credible investigations and prosecutions alongside other accountability measures. However, as long as this accountability deficit remains, the international community can and should play complementary roles. Means to do so include use of accepted principles of universal and extraterritorial jurisdiction to investigate and prosecute alleged perpetrators, and support to the relevant accountability processes in third states, as well as the fair application of targeted sanctions against credibly alleged perpetrators. The past months have unfortunately witnessed an old reflex of using draconian laws to curtail opposition and control civic space, with a heavy-handed approach to protests far too often, including the arrest of protest leaders and forceful crowd control measures, as well as the persistent use of the military in police functions. Recent arrests over statements made during comedy performances and of members of parliament engaged in protests exemplify this concern.
Sri Lanka responded to the comments made in the oral update.
Political stability has been restored while conditions on the ground have improved considerably for the people. Sri Lanka has categorically rejected the external evidence gathering mechanism established following resolutions 46/1 and 51/1, which will have wide-ranging legal and political implications. Notwithstanding its position and despite the severe constraints, Sri Lanka actively and constructively engaged with the regular human rights mechanisms. Let me conclude by reiterating Sri Lanka's continued cooperation and constructive engagement with this Council in keeping with our Constitution and our international obligations.
Defending in Numbers, Rising Together Against All Odds, a biennial publication by Forum Asia, was launched on Wednesday.
The biennial publication Defending in Numbers, Rising Together Against All Odds identifies the main patterns of harassments and challenges the defenders confront within the region. A discussion took place on the situation of human rights defenders in South Asia, especially Sri Lanka.
Mainly they are focused on implementing new legal reforms with very draconian nature, likewise Rehabilitation Act, Anti-Terrorism Act, and recently this Broadcast Regulatory Act. So in terms of these acts, it's very clear the Ranil Wickremesinghe regime is expecting to somehow put pressure on activists, human rights activists and other progressive masses in order to sustain this political power which actually masses wanted to wipe out 1 year ago. Once you were able to establish these economic and social rights of the people, of course, that will be the concrete solution of these kind of burning issues in the society. Actually, new dimension has been opened during the Aragale. A lot of youth, through their voluntary labor, wanted to change this society and change the system. So, in order to encourage them, if we are expecting a system change, at the same time, if we are expecting a country with new democratic rights, of course, these assets we have to use. However, now we are in a difficulty to continue these assets because of these draconian nature of laws. At the same time, this is state repression.
The publications also displays emblematic case studies and information from human rights defenders.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe addressed a summit to adopt a new global financing pact in Paris, France.
At the initiative of its president, France is hosting more than 300 high-level participants, head of state, including the Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, and government, international organizations, and representatives of civil society.
Following the conclusion of negotiations with the IMF and the successful approval of the EFF, we have had no roadmap to follow regarding the next phase of debt restructuring. So, before we can get the next tranche from the IMF. So it's a question of us now mapping the road out, because the debt restructuring process is a negotiation and it should by essence be interactive. Looking at the dealing with Paris Club and non-Paris Club, we need a new approach because this is basically a geopolitical issue. The mistrust between US and China and the growing tension, it has to be addressed by all, not merely by Sri Lanka or the country concerned. If you do not resolve it, I think we will still, in Asia and Africa, we will get caught into another situation not our making. So these would be the major issues that we have addressed. And restructuring is needed. I agree with it. It has to move fast. Otherwise, most of the countries, whether LIC or MIC, will not have much hope, and there will be more instability, political and economic instability. And without creating a separate process under this round table, we should deal with the issues of the middle income countries, because most are under stress. It's better to deal with them under stress than when they are bankrupt. So that process has to evolve. Thank you.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe met with IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva in Paris, France on Thursday. During the meeting, the IMF chief welcomed the strong ownership by Sri Lankan government to address current economic challenges. She noted that the IMF is committed to support Sri Lanka's economic reforms to improve living standards of its people. Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe is in Paris, France for the new Global Financing Pact Summit hosted by French President Emmanuel Macron. President Ranil Wickremesinghe was welcomed by France's foreign minister. French President Emmanuel Macron has invited world leaders, including President Ranil Wickremesinghe, to participate in the Global Leaders Summit for a new global financing pact. World leaders, heads of international organizations and activists are gathering in Paris for a 2-day summit aimed at seeking better responses to tackle poverty and climate change issues to reshaping the global financing system. President Ranil Wickremesinghe participated in the 40th anniversary event of the International Democratic Union in London. President Wickremesinghe outlined the plans to finalize the debt restructuring process by September.
But I think by the end of 2024 we'll be back to normal. The funding agencies will all get in and help us once the debt restructuring is over. I plan to finalize the debt restructuring by September. As I know that the Parliament will vote on Sri Lanka's debt restructuring strategy once that is on. But idea is, what I want to completely liberalize, the structural reforms are being done. Go ahead, immediately liberalize the economy and then ensure that more investments come into Sri Lanka. We will basically take the position of the global south and of Asia there. Both US and China are necessary. Both the Indo-Pacific and the Belt and Road Initiative, the ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific. All three we are committed to. The rise of China has led to the rise of Asia. So our success depends on ensuring that China's economic development continues. But that's not enough for our part of the world. We need ASEAN and India. Given another 20-25 years, we'll see the growth of India and the ASEAN countries, and later the Middle East. So we've been able to balance ourselves as some small countries have to do. But we also value our relationship with US so long. But we have supported US from the very beginning of having a base in Yugoslavia. And now we're asking everyone who's work with us in Sri Lanka and work with the chairman of IORA to ensure freedom of navigation in the Indian Ocean. But we also stand for freedom of navigation in the Pacific. And the three main issues have to be resolved. It can't be done by one group dominating over the other. So China must sit down with the ASEAN countries and resolve those key issues.
Parliamentarian Dr. Harsha De Silva commented on debt restructuring in Parliament.
I would like to table the letter of intent sent to the head of the IMF. Ranil Wickremesinghe has signed this as the finance minister and Nandalal Veerasinghe as the central bank governor. This contains the views on debt restructuring and somehow caused confusion here. They say that the IMF wanted to restructure domestic and external debt. However, the IMF has not mentioned that. This letter was signed on the 6th of March. No matter what is said, there is an undertaking here.
At the invitation of Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister King Gang, Sri Lankan Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri will visit China from June 24 to June 30th.
Sri Lankan farmers protested across several areas demanding solutions for their issues.
Farmers marched from the Agriculture Research Institute in Ambalantota to the Ambalangoda town in protest, demanding a proper price for their paddy harvest. They stressed that a price of 60 rupees to 70 rupees per kilogram of paddy is unacceptable. The Pemadu Wakawantist agrarian movement in Anuradhapura also protested. They alleged that the Agrarian Services Centre is not releasing fertilizer due to inefficiencies from the officials. They marched to the Agrarian Services Centres in protest, and Sri Lanka police had to intervene to control the situation. A group gathered opposite the Valigama Divisional Secretariat on Thursday, alleging that the Samurthi benefit was cut under the Aswasuma Social Security Program. They later entered the Samurthi division of the Divisional Secretariat.
කියන ලැජ්ජ වෙන දේවල් නෙවෙයි. හරිම කනකාටුයි ඇත්තට මේ පාලකෝන්ගේ වැඩ අන්තිමයි මේ මගේ ගෙදරට ආවෙත් නෑ මේක. නිරීක්ෂණය කරන්න සමීක්ෂණ කරන්න මොකට කැපුවද කියලා අපි දන්නේ නෑ. හරිම අසාධාරණ විදිහට තමයි මේ සමීක්ෂණය සිද්ධ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
Did the Cabinet of Ministers amend the conditions that were imposed on the 3 foreign companies that were given permission to enter the retail fuel market here in Sri Lanka? Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara responded to these allegations in Parliament on Thursday.
There was a condition in this agreement that these companies can only take the proceeds they earn out of the country after 1 year. We asked them to invest these profits. Then there were 2 other conditions. Now these foreign entities are investing dollars to bring fuel into the country, but then they sell it for rupees. These proceeds will go to their accounts as rupees. Then the central bank informed us last year, as a remedy to the prevailing foreign exchange crisis, not to allow anyone to convert any rupees to foreign currency for 9 months. This was informed to us last year. But then this year the central bank informed us that by allowing investors to keep these proceeds in rupees and by allowing them to convert it after 9 months would add an extra burden on our foreign reserves, and sudden conversion of a large sum of rupees to a foreign currency will collapse our foreign reserves. Therefore, the central bank advised us to allow them to convert these proceeds which they earn in rupees to dollars on the same day. That is why we allowed this, but this will not allow them to take these proceeds out of the country. The reason why we wanted to collect 1% royalty was to settle our outstanding debt. But while this was afoot, the Finance Ministry came up with another mechanism to earn back our outstanding debt. we have now introduced a 50 rupee tax for a litre on settling these outstanding debt. But if we are to add another 1% in addition to this 50 rupees, then we will have to add this burden again to the public. Therefore, without imposing two taxes, the Finance Ministry asked us to impose one tax. That is why we changed this 1% royalty tax to a 50 rupee tax per litre.
A panel discussion on a multidisciplinary approach towards climate change took place in Colombo.
An interactive discussion on climate action, a multidisciplinary approach, was held at the Faculty of Arts of the University of Colombo on Thursday. It was a collaboration between the Asia-Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management Sri Lanka and the University of Colombo. The discussion was moderated by Senior Lecturer of the University of Colombo, Dr. George I.H. Cook, and the panelists included Firzan Hashim, Country Director of the Asia-Pacific Alliance for Disaster Management Sri Lanka, Samantha Kumarasena, CEO of the National Cleaner Production Centre, Shevan Daniel, Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Group, Yasangi Randeni, General Manager, Group Business Development and Sustainability, Aitken Spence PLC, Independent Analyst Vajini Herath Gunaratna, and Dr. Sajith Edirisinghe, Secretary of the Sri Lanka Medical Association. Senior Professor Chair H.D. Karunaratna, Vice Chancellor of the University of Colombo, and Senior Professor L. Manavadu, Dean of the Faculty of Arts of the University of Colombo, also addressed the event. Disaster risk reduction and the private sector role in mitigating disasters and cooperation with the public sector was discussed at the panel discussion.
Fox Jaffna, the cherished ancestral home turned heritage hotel, proudly celebrated its 5th anniversary on the 22nd of June with the participation of management and the staff.
Since its inception, Fox Jaffna has redefined the sphere of hospitality, enchanting guests with its vibrant history, expansive landscape gardens, stunning appointed swimming pool, authentic cuisine and unwavering commitment to Jaffna culture. Fox Jaffna's excellence in service and experience has been recognized with prestigious accolades, including the 2020 SATA Awards for the Best Heritage Hotel in South Asia, a testament to its commitment to preserve and celebrate Jaffna's rich heritage. Fox Jaffna has also been consistently honored with the TripAdvisor Certificate of Excellence every year since its inception. The resort remains steadfast in its mission to create cherished memories and invites travelers to embark on a transformative journey of exploration and indulgence when they visit Fox Jaffna.
Starting off with an international story that's been making headlines across the globe, a massive search operation is underway in an area twice the size of Connecticut for the submersible that went missing on Sunday, as officials fear the craft's oxygen supply could run out.
The US Coast Guard said it has not identified the source of banging noises that were picked up by sonar on Tuesday and Wednesday during the search. This is similar to the experience of trying to locate an aircraft in the sky even if one hears the sound of it passing above. The sub is carrying 5 people, a British adventurer, a French diver, a Pakistani father and son, and the founder of Ocean Gate Expeditions, the company that operated the tour to the Titanic wreckage. The submersible begins each trip with 96 hours of life support and has been missing since Sunday, setting up Thursday morning as a key target for finding the vessel and those on board. New high-tech vessels and medical personnel are moving to the search site as rescue efforts reach a pivotal moment. The Titan submersible that went missing en route to the Titanic wreck was designed to return to the surface after 24 hours, according to Aaron Newman, an investor in OceanGate who visited the site on the vessel in 2021. Titan is held underwater by ballast, heavyweights that helps with a vessel's stability, built to be automatically released after 24 hours to send the sub to the surface. The Titanic wreckage sits at the bottom of the ocean, nearly 13,000 feet below the surface, southeast of Newfoundland, Canada.
In sports news, the Netherlands recorded a comfortable 5-wicket win in their ICC World Cup qualifier against USA.
Batting first, USA posted 211 runs for the loss of 8 wickets in their 50 overs. Shayan Jahangir top scored with 71 runs and Jesse Singh chipped in with 38. Chasing 212 runs to win, the Netherlands reached the target in 43.2 overs. Scott Edwards shined with an unbeaten 67, while Teja Nidamanuru contributed with 58.
In more news from the Cricket World Cup qualifiers, centuries by skipper Shai Hope and Nicholas Pooran helped West Indies register a comprehensive win over Nepal in Harare.
Batting first, West Indies posted 339 for the loss of 7 wickets. Skipper Shai Hope smashed 132 runs, while Nicholas Pooran contributed with 115 runs. Chasing 340 runs to win, Nepal could only post 238 runs as they were bundled out in 49 overs. West Indies won the game by 101 runs.
And that's a wrap of primetime news on TV1 for tonight. But don't forget, Newsline will be telecast right after this. I'm Charlotte Benedict for the News First team.
And I'm Naveksha Gunasekara.
Good night.